Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Norma Nieto, and I'll be facilitating our webinar today focused on jumpstarting your automation testing. Thank you so much for joining us in this very busy time. Before we get started, I'd like to cover just a few housekeeping items. First, to let you know this session is being recorded, and the download link to the recording will be shared with you afterwards. Second, we will have a live question and answer portion at the end with our presenters. To ask a question, please use the chat feature on your GoToWebinar control panel, usually found at the right side of your screen. If you have any questions that we run out of time or we can't get to our live session, we'll be sure to follow up with you after the session. I see that some people are still joining, so we're going to give it just 1 minute before I go ahead and introduce our presenters. Okay, let's go ahead and get started. All right, so thank you again for joining us. Take this moment to introduce our presenters. Our featured presenter, like Madonna and Elvis, needs only one name, Ganapathy. He is our quality assurance and automation practice lead here at CEI. He has over 17 years of experience in full life cycle of software development and software quality assurance process projects with expertise specifically in automation testing, from framework development to tool implementation and scripting. He has led many automation teams using tools including Selenium, Catalog, UFT, AutoIT, and Microsoft Test. We also have Cliff Donahue. He is the VP of Managed Services and Distributed Delivery here at CEI. He has a long career of 26 years of experience in information technology, during which he's developed and delivered technical solutions for multiple clients leveraging diverse workforces, both here in the US and in India. Here at CEI, his current responsibilities include the ownership and growth of managed services, including the automation work we do for our clients. And last but certainly not least, we have Russ Musoff. He is our VP of Financial Services here at CEI. He has over 27 years of experience in solutions delivery, leadership and consulting business development, and over 18 years focused on helping the financial services industry solve tough business problems, including automating the rigorous testing required by the regulatory environment through the smart use of technology. And now I'm going to turn it over to Cliff to get us jump started right into our presentation.
Thank you, Norma. Our agenda today, we'll hit on the following items. First, we're going to look at the key drivers of automation, what it is that are bringing organizations to automate so much of their testing efforts. Next, we're going to discuss the challenges of getting started. So many people start at a place that paints them into a corner later. So let's talk about that a little bit. We'll then cover automation, progression, and scope. I'll then turn it over to Ganapathy, who will cover some initial strategies, including risk-based testing. He'll then talk about selecting the right framework, and then he'll wrap up the educational portion of the webinar with preparing for long-term success. Then we're going to turn this over to Russ. Russ is going to step in and cover a couple of case studies for us. He's then going to talk about CEI's offering to the community today, and then we'll wrap up with some simple Q&A. So with that said, we'll go ahead and get started. Let's go ahead and talk about the key drivers of automation. In general, the drivers of automation can be rolled up into three categories. We have quality, we have efficiency, and then throughput. As you would imagine, quality is all about improving the testing and the resulting code that it supports. It's about removing human error. It's about consistency in execution and therefore the results from that. And then, of course, it's about extending the coverage of the tests, easily being able to scale, which leads a little bit into efficiency for us. So efficiency being the cost effectiveness, not only of the testing, but of its tangential support of the complete development life cycle. So test execution costs, while it certainly increases in the short term, there's a point in the life cycle where it drops dramatically, and as more and more tests are executed. So it's understanding where and how you're getting to that point. Automation test execution can be realized as much as 70% faster than manual testing would be. And of course, that depends on the architecture of the application and the automation tools that are chosen. And then the final piece of efficiency is the lower support costs that are realized as bugs, incidents are detected earlier in the overall life cycle. And as I'm sure most of us are aware, the earlier in that life cycle that we detect things, the less expensive they are to remedy. Finally, we have throughput, which is simply how much testing we can get finished. With automation, we have a reduction in the overall testing time, and when I say that, that's real-time duration. The scaling of the testing without having to scale with the equivalent costs, and then finally extending coverage by building things in a modular manner, being able to leverage reuse across test scripts and test cases. Understanding these key drivers, let's go ahead and talk about some of the challenges that we face getting started. As most of us can appreciate, the challenge of getting buy-in from key decision makers is crucial. The key is building a case targeted to the needs of that specific decision maker. In principle, right, we're going to focus on, or you're going to focus on two areas, right? One is those who are looking at business delivery. And of course, at that point, you're going to want to focus on not only quality of the automation, but the speed to market that it enables. Later on in this discussion, we're gonna have a conversation on one such instance where we were able to markedly speed the time to market for one of our clients. The other side of this is, of course, there will be those who are focused just on dollars and cents and putting together that ROI and making sure that the right pieces are included. Script building, the maintenance tools on the other side versus manual execution defects and when those defects occur. And of course, any cost of lost business that you may normally experience due to the prolonged life cycle on the manual side. The second piece is knowing what to automate. We're gonna hit that next, so I'm gonna just glance over that. Selecting using the right tools. Scalability is going to cover that afterwards. As far as the right framework, teams, and processes, again, something that Scalability is going to cover. I will remind you though that not having the maintenance procedures to support your testing approach goes a long way to undercut the expectations of others and the confidence that they have in the testing automation in general. That leads, of course, to setting the right expectations. This is just as important as the automation work itself. I'm sure most of you who have encountered poorly set expectations can realize that the best of results can be turned on their heads if the expectations were not set right, or set were not balanced going in. So let's cover scope and the areas of automation. The areas can be broken up really into 5 distinct groups. Right? We have foundational, conceptual, regression, technical, and QA, and each of those levels, each of those groups, builds upon things that you'll have fleshed out and encountered in the previous ones. We call this automation maturity. Everything in a higher level does not depend on everything on a lower level, but there are certain pieces, and that's where you need to scope out and understand what plays into that. So at the bottom level, we have the foundation, and as everyone understands, foundation is what everything else is built upon. These are things like in choosing the correct framework for the job. This is based on not just what skill sets you have in-house, it's what applications you have, the style of testing you're going to do, and the breadth of the applications that you have. The worst thing you want to do, of course, is paint yourself into a corner, get a tool that you've got 3 or 4 people that understand how to use, but when you go to implement it, it doesn't integrate well with your other tools that you have. It doesn't integrate with your test suite. It doesn't even have well-developed libraries and connectors to allow you to test the rest of the application in your portfolio. So it is important to spend some time looking at that and looking and choosing a framework. It's not going to be a one-size-fits-all, but it's good to get and understand what that roadmap is going to look like to cover you in all your testing. Your testing styles is important, and of course, the final thing is looking at your SDLC for your automation scripts. Can't tell you the number of organizations that forget this piece. Automation scripts are just as important as your code is, and it needs to be managed with as much rigor. I almost said the same way, but the same way is not correct. Depending on whether it is for testing in QA, in regression testing, those are stored and managed and processed slightly different. If I'm doing smoke testing, right? Smoke testing of a production environment, I've got to think of how I'm connecting to those production environments and how my current processes allow me to deploy there. So a lot of thought needs to go into that. It's not just a one-size-fits-all. As we jump up to conceptual, again, building on the foundational, oftentimes you'll do smoke testing, you'll do build verifications, you'll do data management to allow you to build and maintain that data for all your test environments and all your types of testing. When you get into regression testing, again, starting with the scenarios that are used most often, and then building out from there. Sometimes people will look for scenarios that are just sequential or grouped together, and that's not always the best way to do it, right? You can get more bang out of understanding that you're not going to have your applications automated 100%. So feel free to carve it up, look at the most used areas so that you can get the most automation early, and then extend it out to cover complex things and cover eventually the end-to-end processes. We jump up to technical, performance, stress, load, security. All of those are made easier when you have pieces of the lower foundations. I can reuse a lot of my regression scripts in a performance test or in a load test. And so understanding that and not just trying to jump in at the top saying, I want to do a performance test is extremely important. The last piece is the QA side. And again, the QA, understanding that a QA test is aligned to my development process. It's not regression. It's taking place in the same cycles, in the same sprints that my development is, much more tightly coupled. It's covering new functionality, modified functionality. And so your SDLC needs to cover that to make sure that you're not getting in the way of your development processes. So that's what we would consider the layers of scope and the overall areas of automation. Let me next turn this over to Ganapathy and let Ganapathy discuss some strategies for testing.
Thank you, Cliff. Okay, so most of the teams get confused on this phase, like initial strategies, due to lack of a strategy, which makes them not to take another step forward towards the automation. Few companies ends up with the unmanageable code or test scripts. Getting started with test automation is not easy unless we know what we are doing. Automation can be an awesome productivity booster within the testing teams and a quality enhancer for the entire system when it is used correctly. The key is to make sure that it is used in the right way, which is the hardest part when we starting out. In spite of all the tools and the support are available to begin automation, there is a big question about what do you actually automate and how. Unfortunately, the tools themselves do not tell you what to automate. In reality, you cannot automate everything, so you have to be strategic. CEI recommends you to use two approaches to help to overcome this challenge. One is risk-based testing, and another one is automation pyramid. Risk-based testing gives higher priority to testing the elements that are most at risk of failing, which also carry the greatest negative consequences if said failure occurs. As listed, these are few items that should be taken into consideration are functionalities or scenarios that may cause financial impact because of potential errors, analyzing the probability of failure in critical functionalities, key items defined in service level agreements. Is there money or are there lives at stake? So there are several systems that deal with such important matters like gas detection industry, banks, financial services industry, etc. These assessment area will give you a good method of prioritizing which test cases or scenarios to automate to start with. Another approach that we highly recommend is to follow the automation pyramid. Most of the solutions always talk about GUI test, which is easy and simple to approach, but it will result in high levels of frustration because it emphasizes automation on UI level, which employs more brittle tests that breaks easily. Whereas if you focus on automated unit tests, you are helping to prevent bugs or eliminate them almost immediately as you go through the software development lifecycle. The value of automation comes from the information that it provides, not the number of tests executed, nor the frequency. What we care most about is, are we getting the right information to make the best possible decisions when improving the quality of our systems? We cannot achieve this without selecting the right framework for the automation implementation. So many teams struggles during this phase due to several reasons. They may lack the expertise to use a certain tool. The tool they want does not exist, or their set of tools does not offer the complete test coverage, etc. CEI recommends different flavors of framework to foresee the path of successful automation. These frameworks are from our experience. Few companies see automation test scripts maintenance as a huge task for various reasons. We will recommend, based on assessment, about scriptless framework, which means no code or less code required to accomplish the automation test scripts. A low-code or no-code development platform is a visual software development environment that allows automation developers to drag and drop application components and connects them together and create mobile app or web app. This modular approach allows professional developers to more quickly build applications by relieving them of the need to write the code line by line. Second flavor is behavior-driven development. Focuses on closing the gaps in meeting the expectations between what a stakeholder wants and what is delivered. It is important to narrow down this gap as much as possible. One way to achieve this would be for the development and the business teams to collaborate on a common language like Jerkins, which uses given, when, then kind of a keywords, and have a suite of automated tests that when run, does what the stakeholder wants. So these are hence called acceptance tests because the stakeholder finds them acceptable. Acceptance tests capture the behavior of applications as seen from outside, that is, as a user or a stakeholder experiences it. This is different from the unit tests that capture whether you build the thing right, not necessarily build the right thing. As you see, like both no code and low code, and as well as behavior driven development, we have a mixture of the tools available, like commercial and as well as open source. On a no code or low code basis, like Catalan Studio, Tricentis, Qtest, Runnerrocks. So these are all like leading providers of the commercial tools. As same, like we have our own custom framework on that front, and there is another tool which is free, is testproject.io. In the behavior-driven development, as you see that there's a Cucumber Studio, which comes as a commercial tool and with the Spec Cloud, and open source with the Protractor, Karate UI, and Gauge and Tyco. Third flavor is a hybrid framework, would be the my favorite one, which by requirements demands multiple solutions. Most of the times, a single tool does not provide the solution to all the requirements. If the tool you have doesn't do everything you need, we recommend to find a multi-tool solution. In our case, we have developed several custom testing tools for clients with the specific needs. Last flavor is Microsoft only. When companies goes with all Microsoft practice, and we have strong team who goes with all Microsoft, then Microsoft provides us the perfect framework for automation, Microsoft Test Platform. Microsoft gives us an open source and extensible test platform that enables running tests, collecting diagnostics data, and report results. The test platform supports running tests written in various test frameworks like NUnit, MSUnit, etc., and using a pluggable adopted model, which also includes like Power Automate, which has been actually introduced last week, and with Azure DevOps and the Azure pipelines. So being all said that, what will be the right path for a successful automation? While test automation has clear benefits, most automation efforts fail because they lack proper planning and preparation upfront. By automating software testing, you can scale and accelerate tests, reduce the errors, and buy back time on software projects. That's good. But developing a test automation strategy that suits your business needs can be like navigating an obstacle course with scripting languages and traceability issues forming the hurdles and hedges that could stand between you and success. That's bad. To ensure the good outweighs the bad in your implementation, we lay out the right path for the successful automation with key milestones: strategic roadmap, tool selection and design, process optimization, maintenance strategy, and the continuous testing. So these are the key milestones. So best practices of these 5 milestones produces the positive results all through the automation engagement. Strategic roadmap gives you the answer for the question, what? This helps to identify the gaps between expectation and reality. It also helps to remove the uncertainty and focus on balancing the efforts we lay out. Tool selection and design analysis helps us to assess our need and put the right framework in the place. Process optimization tells us how to make the automation manageable with best practices, audits, and achieve efficiency and uniformity. This also reduces the miscommunication between the teams and allows greater focus towards our goal. Maintenance strategy, without one in place, it is difficult to stabilize the automation. This will help us to make a platform and a tool in a right balance. Finally, a continuous testing, which enables the people to focus on higher priority tasks rather than repetitive and rule-based tasks. This will also pave the right path for the continuous improvement in automation testing. Once we have the best practices and standards in place, it is very important to stabilize the automation team structure as well. As time goes, automation framework development becomes saturated. When a project goes on expanding, the regression testing work simply becomes uncontrollable because of the pressure to handle the current functionality changes, previous working functionality checks, and the bug tracking. Team can be structured into two by having an automation strategy and automation delivery, where automation strategy focuses on enhancement in framework, tool upgradations, etc. Meanwhile, the delivery team focuses on test scripts creation, maintenance, and execution. So there are some common missteps once the automation projects get started, the organization often make. So first thing is strong manual scripts are not leveraged. Automation scripts are best when they are based on proven manual test scripts. Too often, organizations start over instead of leveraging the well-proven manual tests that they already have. Automation tools do not match the problems. Tools are often chosen because they fit the first problem considered, or somebody in the organization had those skills. As automation extends, it is often found that the initial tool chosen isn't fit for all the work. Comprehensively assessing an organization's automation needs positions them for the selecting right tools. The wrong things are automated in the wrong order. Too often, organizations jump into without building the automation foundations, as Cliff said. Assembling the right framework in right order positions an organization for a long-term automation success. Automation is treated outside of an SDLC. Automation development is nothing less than the application development. Automation scripts are often not considered as a part of organization's SDLC. Because of this, they forget the process required to develop and maintain the scripts in their role of supporting new and enhanced code. So here, I would call Russ to walk us through the rest of the slide deck with success stories and etc.
Thanks, Ganapathy. All right, next I'd like to share a couple of customer case studies. Then I'll follow that with some additional information about CEI and our automation practice. And lastly, I'd like to share a special offer to help you jumpstart or evolve your test automation practices. So our first case study involves a network of banks that provides wholesale mortgage solutions across the US. The challenge in this instance was to help the network of banks create a consistent and repeatable testing process that would cover regression testing for a cycle of 2 major releases per year for 2 mission-critical applications. So CEI created a custom automation framework and suite of test scripts that supported feature variability between the banks, allowing the banks to leverage the scale and cost benefits of a centralized testing strategy. And just to highlight some of the benefits the banks realized, so they saw a nearly 50% reduction in testing costs and over 50% reduction in production incidents. Overall manual testing was reduced by over 1/3, and the efficiency of automation materially reduced the turnaround time for executing the test suites. And I'll share an example. So prior to automation, it took one particular bank over a month to complete manual UAT testing. And with automation, we were able to help that bank reduce the UAT cycle time to 1 week. Our next case involves a global provider of portable gas detection devices and gas detection services. The challenge for this organization was to organize and optimize testing across 4 divisions in an environment that spanned web, Windows, embedded, and mobile applications. So there's plenty of complexity there. CEI automated the regression suite smoke tests, which were used to ensure key systems were up and available, and UI testing across all divisions and environments. We also created an RPA solution that leveraged the Selenium framework and AutoIT to automate testing for the organization's embedded solutions. So if we look at the benefits for this organization, we saw productivity increase of 60% due to the consistency and repeatability of the automated testing processes. We saw material improvements in the organization's enterprise-wide quality management process. And as mentioned above, the organization now has a consistent and repeatable testing process for their critical applications as a foundation for moving forward. Next slide, please, Norma. So now I'd like to share a little more information about CEI and our automated testing capabilities. So just for some background, CEI was founded in 1992, and we are a roughly 600-person national advisory services and solutions consultancy. We are headquartered in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, with offices across the US, and we have a delivery center in Chennai, India. We provide strategy services, custom software solutions, staffing solutions, and managed service solutions to organizations of all sizes. Our automated testing practice is covered both in CEI's managed services and custom software solutions. So as I think about our automation practice, there are a couple things that really stand out to me. One is our experience and culture of innovation. So our automation practice has been working together for nearly 10 years. And the team truly loves what they do, and they're consistently at the forefront of automation practices and technologies. And just to share a story from my personal experience with Ganapathy, Ganapathy is routinely asked for advice around automation, and as he fields those questions, he not only answers the client-specific, questions, but he also goes the extra mile to compare and contrast other alternatives and options to help educate and provide a broader awareness of the options in the market, so that the client really has a more broad understanding of what's available to them. I think the second thing that kind of rings in my mind is the flexibility and ability to scale, right? So it's really a best of both world options here. So the flexibility of our hybrid model allows organizations to have a local team with the capability and benefits of an offshore practice and thought leader. And this model allows us to grow, start small and grow with our clients as their organizations and automation needs grow. Next slide, please, Norma. Okay, as I wrap up my portion of the webinar, I'd like to share an offer to help you get started down the path with test automation. So free of charge and over a roughly 60-day period, we want to offer a jumpstart engagement where we'll work with you to provide an assessment of your testing practices and a recommendation around what to automate, an automation framework tailored to your environment, and lastly, we'll automate up to 50 of your existing manual test cases. All this is roughly a $50,000 value offered at no charge to you. If you're interested, you can call, text, or email me using the contact information provided on the right hand of the slide. All right, next I'll turn things back to Norma for Q&A.
Thank you, Russ. Thank you. So at this time, we're going to move into our Q&A portion of the webinar. We thank those who submitted questions in advance when they registered. Hope that we addressed at least some of those in the presentation. As a reminder, you can ask a question via the chat feature of the GoToWebinar in the control panel. There's a little drop-down box that says chat, and you can enter your question there. Or sorry, there's a drop-down box that says questions, and you can enter your question there. So while you do that, let's go ahead and jump to some questions. We'll start with one around our offer that I'll ask Cliff to field. Our organization already has a framework. Can we still take advantage of this offer? How would it work?
So certainly you can. All of our clients are different. All of our clients are at different points in their automation lifecycle. Some of them haven't thought about it. Some of them are thinking about it. Some of them are well on their way. So for those of you who are not at the beginning, which this offer was geared to address. Certainly, we would offer that come in and let's talk about an application that maybe we want to automate or extend automation to. Let's look at your framework. Let's assess if the framework that you have in place is the right one for that application that you're looking at. Let's talk about the processes, and then let's jump in and do it. The key thing here is, it's still going to be around 2 months worth of time. We'll just do less of the finding a new framework for you and more assessing and more building.
Okay, thanks, Cliff. We do have a question from the audience, and I'm not sure if that would go to Cliff or you, Ganapathy, but could you talk about, from your perspective, what framework was used for API automation testing? And
yeah.
Go ahead.
Sure, Norma, yeah. Okay, so API automation is actually falls into a different category. How we actually are going to use it. If it is actually simple and it is one-time usable, there are certain tools that actually we can go with, even for the unit test we use Postman. So just to test it. So there are certain specific tools like Catalan. If you don't want to write any code, as I said, no code or less code, you can actually use the Catalan to do the API testing. Or if you want actually to rise up and then you are aiming for the open source content, then probably we can go for the Selenium as well. So it's different flavors comes in, but what is the size of the API and how often we are going to test it. So based on that, we can actually choose the right framework on that.
Okay, thanks, Ganapathy. Anyone else have anything else to add on that? Okay. So here's another question that was previously submitted. Does an automation testing require large investment up front? Can you talk about that relative to ongoing manual testing? And we did prepare a slide in advance.
Sure. Yeah, it is there. That's not why. Yeah, one thing actually we need to keep in mind is that not everything can be automated. So there is no need to try to replace all the manual testing because there are things that just can't be automated or not worth automating. Testing a new functionality manually allows you to quickly know more about the applications at low cost. As knowledge accumulates, the inventory of tests increases, and consequently, the cost also increases of manual testing, as you see in the graph. On the other hand, the automation has a higher initial cost, which decreases as it progresses. Automation of regression tests enables your QA team to spend more time on exploring the new functionalities instead of retesting the same one. So you reduce time and expenses required for the QA activities. So you design and prepare scripts once and then adjust them to functional or interface changes in new versions of your software. The duration of scripts support demand depends upon the number and the nature of the software changes. So hence the diagram that represents the ratio between the time and cost of the manual and the automation testing. I hope actually that answers.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Norma, if I can just add, it's also to get to the specific question was asking a large upfront investment, and again the answer is going to be no, it doesn't require that. What the picture that you're seeing right here on the screen, this is not right. This is not that initial investment is not building out all your scripts. You're building out a small subset of scripts, and it has a curve like this. And at some point with that small subset of scripts, you break even based on the number of times that script is executed versus manual. And then you go on and you do another one. So this picture is really dozens and even hundreds of other pictures just like this that when put together allows you a much more gradual approach to your spend.
Thanks, Cliff. We do have another question from our audience. Have you used MS Test in API automation testing? That might be for Ganapathy.
Yeah. Yeah, of course, actually, like we can use that. So, like, whatever actually the API that's been determined with actually like, MS Test framework, yes, we can actually use that because Microsoft platform comes up with, the web client, HTTP client inbuilt. So we can actually write the, test cases to execute and verify the API. Yes.
Okay. Did that answer your question? Hopefully you can, if you want, ask a follow-up.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So I think we probably have time for just one more question. I'm sure you've all heard the terms shift left and shift right. So if you could just give us a quick overview of what those mean.
Yep, definitely. So we need to understand the DevOps on specific, like the testing. So the shift left versus shift right is a kind of, like two different approaches where we actually put our testing in practice. So the shift left approach uses the test early and often kind of a mantra to perform testing earlier in the life cycle. So thereby actually moving towards the project timeline. So whereas the shift right approach in testing enables you to test in production and prepare for the undefined or unknown or unexpected changes. So the functional, non-functional, and testing every build and testing every deployment comes as a part of shift left. The API monitoring and production traffic, etc., that will come under shift right. I hope actually that answers the question.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's about all the time we have for today. If there's any questions that you have or any additional follow-up questions that you didn't think of, please go ahead and send those you can send them to Russ or reach out to somebody else in the organization that you already have contacts with. Thank you very much to all our presenters for sharing their knowledge today. And we will send you a link to the recording that you can use to review or share with others in your organization who would be interested. We'll also follow up via email in case you want a PDF version of this presentation. We hope you're all staying well in this unprecedented time. Again, if you need help or interested in our implementation offer, please reach out to Russ or your designated account executive. Have a great afternoon. Thank you very much. I'll stop the recording now.